Welcome to the Flourish with Dr. B podcast, where we inspire people to flourish in mind, body, and spirit. And today, the buzz is with B and BZ
Howdy.
as we wrap up July. Wow, that was so fast.
That was fast.
So, we hope that you have been enjoying our whole communication theme, whether it's personal or professional. We had Sandy and Ted, amazing, amazing people, so important in our lives, who came and talked a little bit about more on the business end.
Yeah.
And Ben and I are going to wrap up this month talking a little bit more about the personal end. We started the month by talking about how we acknowledge each other, not just the positive things or the things that are, oh, thank you for this or thank you for that. I think people do that on a regular basis, but the acknowledgement of things that maybe aren't so quote unquote positive. Maybe there was a lack of communication or a breakdown, and we don't, that also strengthens relationships when you acknowledge it and clear it. Um, we there was a concept that I wanted to talk about that we forgot to talk about last time, to be honest, and it's a concept of deposits. When you make a deposit into a relationship, you strengthen it. So yes, deposits are thank you for doing the dishes. Thank you for taking the garbage out. I mean, I always thank Ben for doing those things or whatever it is, laundry or
And,
putting gas in the
and those are
car.
forms of acknowledgments,
Those
but
are
they're, yeah.
forms of acknowledgement and they're forms of deposits. But I would argue, or I would make a stand for deposits can also be like, holding people accountable for, for their actions or non-actions or being their word. You know, I think that we have a saying in our leadership intensive is that you are a stand for somebody's excellence or greatness. And if you let people slide, especially people that are close to you, over time, they will become accustomed to not being their word or not following through. And that's also a deposit, right? That could also be a deposit. Like we're always saying things like, always, because it's like on and off. But we're always saying things like, listen, I don't want to eat the cookies anymore. So don't bring home cookies. Or I want to work out in the morning. So I want to be out of bed by 5:30. And if either of us notice over time that we're not, we're not like, hey, what the heck? You said you wanted to be out 5:30. What's the matter with you? It's like, what's going on? Are you not feeling well? Is that too little time to sleep? Do you need your body to recover? Whatever. That's also a form of deposits and acknowledgement.
So, and if I can jump in here, and I love everything you're saying, I just want to clarify if in case there's anybody out there sort of saying, okay, deposits, I think I know what you're saying, but let's just get some clarity around this. And I have to tell you that it just hit me while we were talking about this, not even before we started recording this episode, where I originally heard about deposits and withdrawals, because you can have both in
Mm,
relationships,
mm.
personal and professional. The first place I heard it was from Coach
Oh,
Nick Papadopoulos,
oh
who
yeah.
was one of our guests.
Earlier this
I
year.
can't remember which episode number, but yes, like only,
He's the one that brought that.
he's the one that when I first met him, long before we did our leadership intensive with him, and he came into our office and trained our sales team. He talked about deposits and withdrawals in relationships. And he was saying that we as humans are always either making deposits or withdrawals in our relationship. So if Belinda says, "Hey Ben, can you do XYZ?" and I say, "Yeah, I got that covered." And then I don't do it, or I don't do it when we both agreed when it was going to get done, whatever it might be. Now I kind of made a withdrawal from our relationship, right? So just by not doing it, that was a withdrawal. Like I took away from our relationship.
Hmm.
So if you look at personal relation or professional relationships as a bank account, it's an account. You're either making withdrawals or you're making deposits. So now if I don't do that, I made a withdrawal.
Mm.
Then what if I don't acknowledge it?
Oh, that's a double
That's
withdrawal.
a that's
That's a
even
deficit.
that's a boom. So the idea is what we want to be doing in our relationships, personal or professional, is making more deposits than withdrawals. In
Hmm.
fact, we want to make way more deposits than withdrawals, just like an actual bank account, right?
So yeah, so it reminds me of my good old sage friend Lynn, who always said that your job as a parent is to make sure your kids go to bed with more poker chips than when they woke up.
Mm.
And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she was like, "Well, every kid wakes up and they have a stack of poker chips in their mind, let's say. And they go to school and somebody says, 'You're stupid.' Well, there goes a poker chip. Oh, that drawing sucks. And I'm like, 'You don't run fast enough.' Another poker chips. By the time they get home, they may not tell us, but the kids have gotten all kinds of insults or their confidence has been decreased and they don't feel great about themselves. So it's our job as parents to make sure they get back those poker chips and not us continue like, you didn't do your homework. What's the matter with you? You need to eat your vegetables. Or like, to really just be like, here, let me help you with your homework. Oh, you did a great job. Thank you for helping me clear the table. Thank you for cleaning up your room. Thank you for taking a shower with before I even said anything and using soap. Our son sometimes didn't use soap. Uh, but then it would be our job to make sure our children went home,
Went to bed.
went to bed
Yeah.
with more poker chips than when they woke up. And that's a deposit. Those are deposits.
Right.
And the same thing with relationships. I think as we get, start to parent teenagers and above, and even before then, if you do, I'm not saying to be a doormat, but if you do have something that you need to discipline your child, we I always strive to, and I told parents to do like a sandwich method or to give two compliments for every disciplinary action. I mean, obviously that's, when things get heated, things get heated. I'm not trying to be a Pollyanna about it all. But you could say something like, "I love the way you made dinner tonight. That was really helpful. It would be even super, super helpful if you help clean up because then it will make the dinner feel more delicious or more enjoyable." So that was a positive, negative, positive, not just you left the kitchen a mess after you cleaned up, after you cooked. What's the matter with you? Right? So that's another way of
I
deposit.
I love that you shared that. Now I want to take this into a slightly different pocket and say that, and this is important for relationships, but think about our relationship with ourselves. And how many withdrawals and deposits am I
Mhm.
making with myself on a daily basis?
We're going to talk about that in the next
And we're going to talk about that
in the next month.
in the next
Yes.
month. That's right.
Which we'll talk about the next month
Right.
in a few more minutes
Right.
when
But
we
I
wrap.
guess what I ultimately want to say about that is that depending on what we do for ourselves and our relationship with ourselves, whatever that is, we're now bringing that self to our
True.
relationships.
Yes.
And so that was
Right.
ultimately it's another consideration for all of us
Right.
to think about when we
And we're going to explore that more in the month of August because, but I'll tell you about those plans in a few minutes as we wrap this up.
yeah.
So one other notion that we want to talk about today, since we're talking about relationships and now we're going to overlap this with our August discussion, is we always we've been for years telling our girls, our daughters, you can do anything. You're just as equal as men. Go out there and be CEOs, be the MVPs of your sports team, be doctors, be lawyers, be the Wonder Woman all around, being able to bring home the bacon and fry it up in a pan and that whole thing. And and it's okay to show your emotion, but oh no, actually with women nowadays, it's like don't show your emotion. But it's, show your strength. You can do anything boys can do, blah, blah, blah. And that's could be fine, could be toxic. Um, I certainly grew up that way. I know that my mom grew up that way, even in the Philippines, third world country. My grandfather would tell her, you can do anything that a boy could do, like would take her to college graduations, be like, see, she's a woman and she's a doctor. Look, she's a lawyer and like, you can do that. So I think that gave my mom a lot of strength, and that she passed that on to me, and my father did too. And at the same time, though, do we tell our sons, yes, they know to be strong and they know to go for it. They know how to be good in sports but we also just tell them, don't cry. Only sissies cry. I remember growing up hearing that. Um, do we teach them not to be nurturers? Do we teach them it's not okay to cry? I actually love, and Ben is the uh I don't want to say victim, but he's on the receiving end every time I see a reel or a TikTok or something on social media where there's like grown men crying, whether it's the first look of a father with his daughter who's a bride, or brothers who see their sister for the first time as a bride. And I'm not even talking about the groom. Like the groom, yes, that always gets me. But seeing the brothers cry, or videos of newborns and with their moms in the hospital, and then the siblings come and the brothers cry when they hold their newborn sibling, or not just funerals or sports victories. Like we kind of, yeah, people, boys will cry there or men will cry there, but just these really tender moments. Do we teach our sons that it's okay to show those emotions? It's okay to cry. It's okay to be a nurturer. It's okay to show vulnerability, because we're always taught that showing vulnerability means you're weak. But we actually believe in our house, and I teach people or I coach people that vulnerability is actually a source of strength, because you're brave and courageous enough to share your vulnerable moments. And perhaps somewhere out there, you will also empower somebody else with your vulnerability. So I just, wanted to chat about this. Ben is sometimes more of a crier than I am. Sometimes I'm more of a crier. Um, my mom even knows that Ben not likes, but it tends to cry after watching some emotional things on TV or movies. I became more emotional, certainly after my father died, but as I became a mother of adult boys, and every time I would say goodbye to them when they went to college or they would leave home for school, I would cry every time. And at one point, it was like my oldest son was like his first year of junior year, first semester of junior year, we drop him off. I started crying as we're leaving, and Eli's like, Ma, this is his third year. Aren't you like used to it by now? And I was like, no, I'm not. Um, but anyway,
I think this topic of conversation, the world has been more ready for it now
yeah,
than it has been in the past. And it's great timing for us to talk about it. It's great timing for me to live now because yes, I can get emotional and connect to my emotions. And I think really that's what it's about is, are we teaching our young men that it's okay to connect to their emotions?
mm,
Because if they're not, how does that manifest in their bodies or in their
illness.
brains? Could
Yeah,
be illness, could be right, because then it's like they're repressing these
yeah,
feelings. And I think that so there's like I know Belinda talks about this with some of her clients and some of her workshops. Like literally, there's a scientific and health concern around that
yeah.
that's very real. And so I think that that's a big thing. I think that we mentioned, people are more open to it today. Think about Jim Valvano. I
Mm,
don't know what. I don't even know how many years ago. I remember watching it live. One of the first years, for those people who are not into sports who are watching this, ESPN, of course, is the largest sports network, and they have the ESPYs each year, which is the award show. And one of the very first years, Jim Valvano, the late Jim Valvano, was a great, great college basketball coach. And it was known going into the ESPYs that he was dying of cancer. And he didn't have long to live. And he went up on stage, and it's one of the most famous speeches of all time. He eventually formed the V Foundation around that. And I'm telling you this because when he talked about they tried to play the music to get him off the stage after receiving the Lifetime Achievement Award, and he said, "You're playing the music? You're talking to a dying man. You're gonna get me off the stage." Like it was amazing. But one of the things he said is he was telling people to live their lives wholeheartedly and fully. And I believe, I don't have the exact quote, but he basically said, if you can live every day and you can think and you can laugh and you can be moved to tears, that's a full day. That's a full day and you've
mm,
lived. And so I invite
yeah,
anyone to go back and look up Jim Valvano and see the speech. It's about 15 minutes long. It's the most brilliant thing. But even then, he was talking about being moved to tears as a man. And
mm,
I think that that opened things up in a lot of ways. I'm
mm,
thinking about we're watching the new Little House on the Prairie right now just to see what's going on. And because Belinda was a humongous fan of Little House
I
on the Prairie
still
back in the day.
am.
And, listen, I grew up on it too. I had an older sister. We were watching it all the time. And so subsequently, we've watched all the reruns together over the years.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, Pa,
Hot
Pa
English.
Ingalls,
Oh,
this man was as masculine as they came. He did I mean, on that show
he
through all
was
those years,
way ahead of his time.
but he also was moved to tears through several different episodes
Several
for
times.
lots of different reasons.
Yeah,
And I just think that those are just sort of examples of but just because a man is crying doesn't mean that he's soft.
right.
And I think that's the message that Belinda is
Mm,
trying to bring in here. Like, there's power in vulnerability. It's connecting to your emotions and ultimately becoming stronger.
right. And I think, we have two boys, right? So growing up, we never told them to stop crying or don't cry. We would be like, I remember even when they were little, I would say things or we would say things to them like, remember, we can get angry with each other. We can disagree. But what? What do I always say? And then they're like, we love each other. We'll always love each other. Um, so I think growing up in a household was when I wasn't allowed to cry, like, you better stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about, or, don't cry. Um, oh my God, you're crying. You're not, that's not strong. That's not brave. We didn't raise our kids that way, the way I was raised. And however, there was something that my father was a psychiatrist. I was raised playing with dolls, playing with girly things, sewing machines, sewing Barbie doll clothes, whatever, hairpins, everything, frilly dresses. But I also grew up with the best Matchbox car collection that would put any guy's Matchbox car on my block
Hmm.
collection to shame. I grew up playing with fake, tools and things like that, trucks and things. And it was something, and my brother, would play with our girl toys too. Our girl toys. That's not really a politically correct thing to say anymore, but
Hmm.
he would help us with my sister with, with cooking toys and baby carriages and little babies, and they would
And we're
play
not really,
house.
we're not really getting into like a conversation around sex and the
The
sex, the
gender
gender, and
identity. That's not
that's
what I'm
not
saying.
that's not the point. I mean, at the end of the day, I grew up inspired by my sister and her friends because I was the little brother that didn't know any better. So I grew up listening to all these disco and seeing Tiger Beat magazines. I know I'm dating myself, But then in 1980, when I heard Van Halen for the first time, boom, it was over. And I listened to rock and roll from there. The point is we're all going to find our own
Right.
way. But
What
it's
I'm
we
saying
think it's
is,
great to be able to expose
right,
our young boys in this in
to
today's
be
culture
nurturers,
to be
right?
nurturers and to be
So
open to anything and not just be pigeonholed into the and by
the
the way,
male,
the whole man up, suck it up,
right.
buttercup. And by the way, there was that going on in our house too. We are not all about participation trophies. We
Hmm.
grew up in the 70s and 80s. We don't necessarily agree with all of that. We absolutely said, listen,
Right.
there's a time to suck it up,
Yeah.
but that's not always the answer.
And to repress one's feelings is not. So, to also encourage, so like, I'm not saying this to be like, wow, look at us, we're
Right.
awesome. We made our share of mistakes, but
And we're still learning.
we did buy our sons a full like little Tykes kitchen set, and they played house without, with each other. Like they pretended they were cooking. We bought them a baby carriage that they would push, their toys in a stroller. It might be a truck, it might be a teddy bear, it might, but they knew that that was a baby stroller. Um,
Well, they were
you
like
know,
you. They did that. They played with that 5 minutes, and then they were playing with monster trucks and trains.
right.
I mean, you
I
just
mean, it was just
right.
what I'm saying is, can we as a society teach men that the division of labor doesn't have to be like
Hmm.
domestic, and like clearly there are things that men have better upper body strength, most men do, over women. So there are things that I would prefer he would go lift. I could do it would take him less time. um or obviously men can't breastfeed, men can't bear the children. But is there a way, that's something like with my father, he came from a third world country, Asian man, very full of honor, but he fed us. He changed our diapers. When it was cloth diapers, he washed my diapers. Like he was very hands-on with us, all three of us, and which was very progressive, being that, like I said, he was raised in the Philippines and he was Asian male, professional Asian males, brought home the bacon and expected his wife to fry it up in a pan. Um, but he taught us that that was a very acceptable role for a male in a household. And thus my brother is very, very, he cooks, he cleans, he does a lot of the repairs in the house. He's very handy, like a lot of the things. And I think too with Ben, you have become that as well, even though that mean you did some stuff growing up. But I think being in our relationship and just being open to, yeah, Ben was a very hands-on father growing up, waking up in the middle of the night, not so it's not only me
Well,
changing the
necessity
bed.
was the mother of invention because you were also out on 30-hour shifts at the
That's
hospital.
true.
But anyway,
But not at the beginning.
right,
You woke up with
right,
me when it was time to breastfeed or
right,
whatever, or
right.
made sure I was. My point is that I, I just I just like to just ponder on things like this. When I was in clinical practice, I went to a fundraiser where the guest speaker posed this question, like, we encourage our boys to grow up as nurturers? And maybe a lot of us do now. There's a lot more men. Like if you look at all the commercials and you see men with the baby packs on the commercials walking their kids, or you look outside and their men are walking their kids. That was not the case back even in the 70s. That would be frowned upon. Like, what is a husband doing? So yes, I think our society as a whole is trending toward that.
It's changed a lot already, no doubt. This is
Yeah,
not some new thing that we're coming
right.
up with, right?
And it's just
It's still in the transition though
it is, it
for our
is.
society. And
But seeing our sons with their like significant others, we see that they do have a division of labor. They both do the laundry, they both do the cooking, they both, like,
mhm.
they serve each other. they serve and help each other. Um, so that makes me feel like, okay, I think we did something good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's not just, oh, and they'll still go and fill up the car with gas for them, or make sure the oil is the oil level
Yeah.
good and
Yeah.
stuff
I think like in
but
our house, we believe in servant leadership.
yes, that's absolutely okay.
And it kind of raises the question, like, if you don't have, if your household is of a male and a female running the household, we can only speak of males and females. Maybe it's different, but
Right.
we really believe that how can you be a servant leader as a male if you're not part nurturer? Because if all the nurturing is really just up to the woman, then there's like not the right division of labor, or
Mhm.
I'm not, it's not coming out
Both
right.
parents have to nurture, basically, whether it's a male or a female, or you
Yeah.
know both
Whatever.
parents
Yeah.
get to be. They don't have to be, but they get to be, because in the end we're raising humans, right? In the end we're raising wholehearted, connected, genuine humans. And how do we do that? How do we make sure that we are um raising kind, compassionate human beings? And I don't know if we do always. I mean, we're always going to make mistakes, and we can say that. We've said it tons of times. We apologize. We made a mistake. Mommy and daddy are not perfect. I'm sorry that, you know, you feel this way, the whole thing. But I guess it's just about deposits. So we just wanted to like bring that up. And transitioning to August, so in July we did relationships and focusing out. But in August, we're going to start to focus within. And we have actually two really great, and not two more great guest speakers. We're not going to spoil it yet. We're going to talk about it next month, who will come on and talk about focusing within. And we'll also talk about some things, some exercises and some things that we have done when it's time to reflect and be still and focus in. But that'll be for August next week. So I guess in wrapping up, what was your flourish flash? Was there anything you wanted to say before I go into flourish flash?
No, I want you to go in a flourish
Okay.
flash.
So what was your flourish flash? What was your aha moment, of just going, I never thought of it that way. Uh, I I don't even know what mine is of this whole thing. I don't know where the conversation would lead to this. I guess I'm putting that out to the listeners to see if there was anything else. And again, we don't, if we said anything to offend anybody, or it just, we weren't, was looking at it through a different lens. We totally get it. And, eh,
We spoke from our experience,
from our
from our
experience,
own
right?
experience. But we get
We're
that
not
ours is not.
we're not casting judgment on anyone or any other type of
Right.
lens. We just something in terms of, can we do better in raising our humans, male or female, doesn't matter. But can we do better in making sure whatever they are doing, they are compassionate, kind, nurturing human beings?
And in it together,
Yeah.
in it together. Which that so hopefully our audience will share any flourish flashes they
Yes.
have, aha moments in our comments on social or whatever.
Share this with somebody that you think would help them. We're always here to make sure adding value to people's lives, and repost,
Yeah.
share, follow. And I think that's it.
I think that's a wrap. And so in that case, I guess we want to say until next time in the hive.
Be kind and flourish fully.